Welcome into Betting NASCAR for people who kind of know a little bit about NASCAR, don't know a little about NASCAR. They want to dip their toe into NASCAR, but they're just kind of like, what do I do? Give me a bet with a little bit of an explanation from someone who sort of knows what they're talking about. That is what I can provide. Maybe we'll call it talking cars. I don't know. Well, talking cars, I guess in cars, they were talking cars. I did not plan that silly intro. Let's get into it, okay? NASCAR heads to Las Vegas for the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube. Now, we'll have some bets, but I'm also going to show you a little bit how the sausage is made. I'm going to talk through it a little bit. That's where I'll start with the track report. Like I said, we're in Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This is a 1.5 mile track. We call this an intermediate track, and this is kind of like NASCAR's main kind of track, I guess. Like when we talk about a short track, we're talking relative to an intermediate track. When we talk about super speedway, road course, it's like, this is like the normal NASCAR track. And the reason I kind of say that is because this is a favorites kind of track. This is a place, it ain't really for long shots. As we've started the season, we had 2 drafting type tracks, super speedway type tracks, a road course, and then a mile track in Phoenix. This is like the real test for, who's going to be running up front all season long. A track like this is usually indicative of who, our champion could be. And it is, the biggest story in NASCAR right now is that Christopher Bell has won 3 races in a row, 3 of the first 4. He can absolutely win in Las Vegas. I think he's the absolute favorite right now. Looks like, Larson's a favorite, but Bell ain't far behind him. So Bell can absolutely do it. And you'll notice that you're like, Tim, how'd you not know who was favored to win the race? Well, that's because, listen, there's a fun way to do this, and there's like a kind of stupid, less fun. Like the winner is probably going to come from one of the top 5 to 6, 7 favorites to win this race. I could sit here and tell you, go bet Bell, go bet Larson. I don't like to take that. I don't like to take a guy plus 400 to win a NASCAR race. Unless I totally feel like there's an edge there. It's not for me. So if you want to go pick one of the top 5 guys and say, Tim, you're an idiot, I'd say, look, I'm gonna have a lot more fun doing it my way. So, and I will actually be hitting a favorite in some capacity, actually. So hold on tight. But we'll start with bets that I have taken. First bet I took this week was Alex Bowman, 28-1. Now, I do want to say here, I learned to bet NASCAR from my previous employer, friend of mine, Nick Giffen. He is a whiz when it comes to NASCAR. He bets based off his model, and he takes a lot of time manicuring this model, tuning this model. So he's the guy that basically taught me how to bet NASCAR, and him and his friend, Jordan Maccabee, they're kind of like the NASCAR gurus, I would say, when it comes to betting NASCAR on Twitter. A lot of what I do is I like to see what Nick's on. I like to see what Jordan's on, and then the best way I actually like to do it is see when I did it on my own, if I got to the same place they did. And even if not, I had a winner this year when Bell was in Atlanta. And that was something that I had learned. I don't think either of them were on. I know Nick wasn't, but I'd used my process to get there. And I was really, really happy with that. So, and I also think I am in a place where I can explain why someone might be taking something, or why the model guys in the sport on Twitter will be on something. I can kind of explain it more in layman's terms. So I want to look at, I guess, how the sausage is made here, how I kind of look at this. So I've mentioned in the Daytona video that iFantasyRace.com, Ryan on Twitter, iRacing Ryan, I think is his name. He does a fantastic job of, his data is fantastic, and he makes a lot of it accessible without the paywall. So one of the things that he has here are the track speeds for every track, the average speed of these drivers since the latest car that we've had in NASCAR, the next gen car. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I know who all the favorites should be. I know why they're there. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of circle a couple places where I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to start the handicapping process and where some diamonds in the rough could be. So where I start to circle is Bubba Wallace and Brad Keselowski. So Bubba's teammate, Tyler Reddick, he's one of the favorites to win this race. He's towards the top of the board, and it's a good cue in NASCAR. And Bowman's the same way here, where uh, two of his teammates, Larson and Byron, they're at the top of the odds board. And you say, okay, so if a guy that's going to be in a similar car, similar quality equipment, if their teammate's going to run well here, we expect, why can't they? Like, sometimes it does come down to driver ability, but it's a good place to start, right? A lot of it has to do with how good is your car. So I know Wallace is in a good car, and I know Keselowski's in a good car, and I know Bowman is. So that's part of the Bowman pick with that 28-1. And so when I look at Wallace and Keselowski, the next thing I do is I'm looking at where besides just to win is their value. So I'm looking at top 10s, top 5s, top 3s. And a fun place I landed on with Bubba Wallace is, you can find this out there, Bubba Wallace top Toyota 20-1. This is one of my favorite type of bets to make. Top manufacturer driver. So top Ford, top Chevy, top Toyota. So Bubba here, 20-1 as the top Toyota. I like it because it feels like, he doesn't need to win the race to have this cash for me. And I know the Toyotas are strong at the top, headlined by Christopher Bell. But to me, Wallace, if, he's in Reddick type equipment, I really like 20-1 there. And again, it's always fun when you're watching a race, not fun, but I guess it makes you feel better when someone's running up front and they're like up 3 seconds on everybody, but you're like, hey, I'm still in the money because that guy's in a Chevy and I have Bubba Wallace top Toyota 20-1. I'm just looking at the Toyotas. So Bubba Wallace top Toyota 20-1 is probably my favorite bet I've made. Not in terms of the money, like in terms of pounding it. This is more of, I think there's a bit of maybe a mispricing here. So 20-1 Bubba Wallace top Toyota, and I put about 1/4 of a unit on something like this. That's my NASCAR units. I tend to keep them small because I like to have a lot of bets, and that's a good reminder to follow me in the Pickett app at Timmy K, where I add a bunch more. I don't want to bore you in the show with me taking 2 dozen NASCAR bets. So I like Bubba there. And when I look at Kez as well, Keselowski, I'm going to take a little flutter, as the Brits say, on Keselowski to win the race at 40-1. He's won here before. He really needs to have a good showing here. He's been he's been at the short end of some wrecks early in the season here, and I do think that I think that the Fords have more speed in the race car than they did to start last season. So I'm a little encouraged by that with Keselowski. And last year, if you look at, this is why like average speed is far more important than where people finished in a race. Last year, he was caught in a wreck at Las Vegas when he was running pretty well. So again, that's why I use a guy like Ryan to help with that kind of information. So Kez 40-1, and this week, every week, I want to make a new tradition to do a ladder candidates, ladders. We all love them in football, or all sports really. But ladders in NASCAR to me would be betting them top 10, top 5, and top 3, and allocating your money accordingly. So I'm going to take Kez on the ladder, top 10, top 5, top 3. If I feel that way about Keselowski, I think I'll probably do it with Bubba as well. Actually, I am going to do it with Bubba. So 2 ladders, Keselowski and Bubba. And it's going to be hard for me not to do it with my guy, Ross Chastain, who I love. I still haven't decided yet, but Ross is another candidate here who seems to run well, but I don't know. I need to see a little more out of Ross. He's one of my favorite drivers, but it's kind of a believe it when I see it kind of thing. And he should be running up in that top 10 range. But again, it's kind of a feel thing on Ross right now, as much as I really like to see him win because I am a Ross fan. So I gave you those, and I want to close out with a little strategy here for getting at the guys who are the favorites to win the race. Now, it might not work out in our favor, but here's kind of my plan. And you can do this a lot with NASCAR, and this is why I like it. So the race is on Sunday, but they will have practice and qualifying on Saturday. They should be having practice. Sometimes they have practice, sometimes they don't. But regardless, I'm thinking about practice and qualifying. So whichever of that group in the top right now of the odds board, whichever one qualifies, I would say the worst, but still shows some speed in practice, I would say that's like the perfect that is the perfect storm. If, say, Tyler Reddick, say Bubba's fast in practice, Tyler Reddick and Bubba are teammates. Say Bubba's fast in practice, but Tyler really wasn't as good as Bubba, and then Tyler Reddick qualifies poorly. The odds will then move on Saturday night, Sunday morning, hopefully to make Reddick, for example, a longer shot. And so that's what I'm going to do. If the guy's in the top 5, that's why you follow me in the Pick It app, at Timmy K. That is how I want to go about it. That is like the NASCAR bettor's dream, is when a guy who's favored to win the race just has one poor qualifying lap and all of a sudden he gets mispriced. So it doesn't happen. I guess the books are a little sharper on it than they used to be. That's the NASCAR betting dream. For all of us sickos out there. Maybe comments for future videos. What more things, what more content do you want? What do you want less of, more of? But I think that's a good place to start with the first time doing this. Again, I started out with Alex Bowman to win the race at 28-1. I had a Bubba Top Toyota 20-1, Kez ladder, Kez outright, Wallace ladder. So let's see. Hopefully during March Madness, hopefully your bracket isn't busted, but you turn over to the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube and you're like, I got a Keselowski ladder to sweat out. Enjoy the race. Ding.